Everyone. Today I will be reading chapter 4 of Molly's story. What could have been a whole day passed. I'm not sure it was really a full day, but it was a long time before I had heard footsteps on the basement stairs again. I smelled CJ. I smelled food too. How wonderful. CJ and food. She pushed the boxes aside and I leaped out, wriggling, and clambered onto her lap. Then I fell off again, so I could bury my nose in the bowl of food. She sat down. She's finally gone. She went to do errands, CJ said. Oh, Molly, I am so sorry. I was too busy eating to do more than swipe briefly at her hand with my tongue. The little pieces inside the bowl were crunchy and tasty, and they didn't burn my tongue like the ham. I ate as quickly as I could, and then slurped up water while CJ picked up the damp newspaper I had left under the stairs and laid down some dry sheets. Then she opened a new door, one that led directly from the basement to the yard, and took me outside. I loved the yard. It didn't have other dogs like Chi or Barney or Daisy, but it did have grass and dirt and ants and beetles to chase and sticks to chew and worms to dig up, and of course, it had CJ. I sprawled on the warm grass, rolling in sheer joy. CJ flopped down beside me. How exciting! Jennifer had been nice, but she had never gotten down in the grass and rolled with me. CJ and I played tug on a towel for a few minutes, but it had been a long morning for me, and I was exhausted. She scooped me up and held me close, and I fell asleep in her lap. When I woke up, I was back in the dark, small space under the stairs. I yipped immediately. This was not where I wanted to be. CJ seemed to understand, for a few minutes later I heard her feet clattering down the stairs. She shoved the boxes aside. Shh, Molly, you need to be quiet, she said. If my mother finds out you're here, she'll make me give you away. I thought I was beginning to understand my girl. When I wanted her, I should bark, and she would come. She took me out of the corner and I explored the basement a little, sniffed in dark corners and got cobwebs stuck on my nose that CJ gently took off. When I needed to squat on the cement floor, she only laughed and shook her head and cleaned the puddle up. Then she hugged me and kissed me up and down my face. Love flowed from her, so strong that I wiggled, all over with happiness. We played and played outside until I was sleepy, and I didn't mind too much when she put me back under the stairs. I knew she'd come if I barked for her. Instead, I took another long nap. CJ had to wake me up when she came down for me in the middle of the night and took me outside to play and wrestle in the cool air of the backyard. Shh, Molly, she kept saying, shh. It probably meant she was as happy as I was to be outside together. The next morning, I woke up under the stairs again, listening to some strange, loud noises from upstairs. It sounded like more of that yowling, but in different voices. This time, I heard Gloria talking too. Would you please turn that music down? She asked. I barked and scratched the boxes that blocked my exit, ready to go out and play with CJ, but for some reason my girl was slow to come. Then I heard a sigh of air as the door that connected the basement and the yard opened up. The boxes slid away and I jumped out into CJ's arms. She was wearing jeans and a sparkly t-shirt, and she had a backpack on her back. I lapped at her chin, my heart beating fast with joy. Time to have some more fun. She's still eating breakfast. CJ whispered to me. You have to be quiet, Molly. You can do that, right, girl? She set down a bowl filled with food for me and another with water, so I figured she was asking if I wanted to eat. Of course I did. When I'd finished, my girl picked me up and carried me outside to the yard and through the gate out onto the street. Then she started to run, bouncing me up and down in her arms. It was not very comfortable. Tug on a towel or find that worm were better games, but at least we were together. When we reached a park, CJ let me down. The park was wonderful, even better than the yard. There was so much grass to run in and flowers to bite and chittering squirrels in the branches of trees overhead. I got dizzy watching them and racing from tree to tree, trying to track their movements. There was excellent dirt to scratch up, and I could smell that many other dogs had been there before me. When I was done running and scratching and smelling, I could always go and flop down on my girl's lap and feel her scratching my back and running her gentle fingers along my ears. We spent the morning at the park together, CJ and me. After we had played for a long time, CJ took a cloth sack out of her backpack. It had lunch for both of us. She took a bowl out of her backpack too and gave me more of the crunchy food. For herself, she had some of that ham stuffed inside bread, and she poured water from a bottle into her hand and let me lap up as much as I wanted. After lunch, I took a long nap with CJ stretched out on the grass beside me. When I woke, I found a likely looking stick and carried it back to my girl so that I could get petted and chew at the same time. CJ obliged. Then she stopped rubbing my ears so that she could wave. Trent, hi, she called. Over here. I could tell she was not talking to me, so I didn't look up from my stick. Then, to my complete surprise, something about my size barreled into me and knocked me over. My whole head was buried in soft fur that smelled familiar. It was my brother. It was Rocky. I had thought when we'd left Jennifer's yard together that I would never see Rocky again. Somehow, I'd had the feeling that was what happened, that dogs left their mothers and their litter mates in order to be with their people. But here Rocky was, rolling me over in the grass, and I was so glad to see him that I jumped on his head and chewed his ears with delight. CJ and Trent were sitting on the grass laughing. Do they remember each other, do you think? Trent asked. Of course they do, my girl said, giggling. Look at how happy they are. Did your mom leave on her trip? Trent asked. You know you could have stayed with us while she's gone. My mom would have said yes. She's leaving this afternoon, CJ said. I just have to keep Molly at the park until then. And I don't mind staying by myself. It's not like I've never done it before. Besides, I've got Molly now. Yeah, you do, Trent sounded worried, but I was too busy pinning Rocky down to pay much attention. But Glory will be back in 2 days, CJ. I know that, Trent. Just not now, okay? Look at the puppy. Let's just have fun. After some playtime, Trent picked up Rocky and said goodbye, and CJ scooped me up too and carried me home. She finally seemed to have learned that the space under the stairs was not a good spot for dogs, because we went in the front door together and she let me down on the living room floor. I was so happy to be beside my girl in our own house that I could have raced in circles, barking and wagging, but I was pretty tired from our morning at the park, so all I did was flop down on CJ's feet and pant happily. She scooped me up and lay down on the couch, holding me close. I wedged my head under her chin. I sighed with pleasure and fell asleep. That evening, CJ fed me dinner in the living room. We sat on the floor, not far from the fireplace. She ate another ham sandwich while she showed well, she watched pictures that flickered on a flat piece of glass, a screen. When a dog barked from the direction of that screen, I sat up straight, pricking my ears. Was there another dog in the house somewhere? Silly Molly, said CJ affectionately. She fed me a bit of ham. It tasted even better when she handed me small pieces, because I could feel her love. Plus, there was fresh ham taste on her fingers every time. It's just you and me. You know what? I actually like it better when she's gone, especially with you here, girl. You're going to keep me company. I squatted down and made a pedal on the floor, which made CJ sit straight up on the couch and drop her sandwich. So I helped myself to bits of it while she ran to get soft, square pieces of paper to dab at the carpet with. Then she took me outside. I slept in CJ's bed that night, and I was so happy about this that I kept waking up and licking her face. She would bat my nose away, but I could tell she didn't really mean it. Finally, I settled down to nibble on her fingers whenever I felt that I just had to show her how much I loved her. And that's how we spent the night. The next day, CJ stood by the stove and made scrambled eggs, putting some in a bowl for me. Delicious. When we went out into the backyard, it was raining, so we didn't stay long. CJ petted me and praised me when I emptied my bladder and bowels into the grass, and I licked at her hands. Whatever made my girl happy made me happy. We played in the house that day, just her and me. Come here, Molly, she called when we were back inside, and I followed her down the hallway. She opened a door, and we went into a room I had not seen before. There was that smell again, flowery and oily with the warmth of a grown-up woman mixed in. I knew that was Gloria's smell, and looked around for her, but she was nowhere to be seen. Here, Molly, CJ said. See the dog in the mirror? I heard the word dog and trotted up to her. Then I dropped back. There was another dog in here. It looked just like Rocky. But what was it doing inside my house? I bounded forward and then pulled back in surprise as the other dog jumped fiercely at me. It didn't smell like Rocky. In fact, it didn't smell like a dog at all. Confused, I wagged my tail. It wagged. I bowed down to see if it wanted to play. It bowed down too. I barked. It looked like it was barking back, but it didn't make any noise. Very strange. Say hi, Molly. Get the dog, CJ said. I crept closer to the other dog, sniffing hard. How strange. It must not be a dog after all, just something that looked like a dog. You see the dog, Molly? See the dog? Whatever was going on, it wasn't very interesting. I turned away, snuffling along the floor to see what I could discover. CJ was looking at the place where we'd seen that dog that was not a dog, pulling her fingers through her hair. I sniffed under the bed. It smelled dusty under there. I poked my nose in further, and it bumped into something. I got my teeth into the thing and pulled it out. It had a promising smell, like sweat and dirt and something animal-like. It felt good in my mouth, too. I settled down to give it a good chew as CJ fiddled with her hair. It was, I realized, what people wore on their feet. It was a shoe toy. Oh well, that's as good as it's going to get, CJ sighed. CJ turned around and gasped, Oh, Molly, no! I looked up and wagged when I heard my name. Very unfairly, CJ reached down when my attention was diverted and snatched my new chew toy away from me. Molly, this is, oh boy, CJ sighed. Not a toy, Molly, okay? I wagged some more, waiting for her to give me the toy back. Instead, CJ yanked the door opened the door where I'd seen the dog that was not a dog and stood in front of it, hesitating. I came to her side. There were lots of clothes in there, and that heavy flower scent wafted out. On the floor were many, many shoes. They all smelled as good as the one CJ now held in her hand, but with Gloria's smell so strong. I did not get the feeling they were for me. I looked up at CJ. You know what, Molly? CJ said, staring into the closet. I don't think she's going to miss it. She handed me the shoe toy back, and I carried it happily out into the living room. I didn't really like that other room anyway. The dog that was not a dog might come back. I got to sleep with CJ again that night, and that was wonderful. In the morning, CJ cooked toast, and I got some. Then she scooped ice cream into a bowl, and I got some of that too. Toast and ice cream. It's like cereal and milk, right, Molly? CJ asked me. I wagged and licked the bowl perfectly clean. When CJ took me out into the yard, everything was moist and the smells were deliciously strong. I squatted again and then dug up a few worms, but I didn't eat any. After you've done that a few times, you learn they're never going to taste any better than they smell. We went back inside and CJ washed up the dishes. Then she took me back to the park. Rocky did not show up with Trent this time, and I was disappointed. But another dog did. His name was Get Back Here, Milo. As soon as his owner snapped off his leash, Get Back Here, Milo raced over to me. Since he was bigger and older, I knew what to do. I lay down on my back and showed him my belly so he'd know that I understood the way things should be between us. He nosed me roughly, and then his owner called, Get back here, Milo! And CJ picked me up, so he ran off again. CJ sat down in the grass and set me down. Then she stretched out so that her face was near mine. I was so happy I yipped and spun. She's coming back this afternoon, CJ said to me. Can you go without barking tonight? I found a stick. I chewed until bits of bark came off in my mouth. I don't know what I'm going to do, Molly. She'll never let me keep you. CJ grabbed me and gave me a fierce hug, squeezing me a little harder than I actually liked. I love you so much. I could feel the affection pouring off her, and it made up for the way she was holding me. But I was really focused on the stick at the moment, so I didn't do much more than wag my tail. When we got back home, I was very disappointed. CJ took me straight from the yard to the basement and plopped me underneath the stairs again. I thought my girl had finally learned that everything was much better when we were together. I barked to let her know she'd made a mistake. She understood. Instantly, the box slid back. I need you not to bark, okay, Molly? My girl said. She texted me from the airport. She'll be home any minute. She slid the boxes back. I stared at them with disappointment, but the truth is, I was pretty tired from all the playing in the park. My new toy was in this small space for me, but I didn't even have the energy for a good shoe right then. I curled up for a nap. I'd bark for my girl later. She'd come. I didn't think I'd been sleeping for very long when a door slammed upstairs, waking me. I'm home, Gloria's voice boomed. Wait till you see what I bought in Aspen. That's the end of chapter 4. I hope you enjoyed it.